welcome to Flat Earth Debate Uncut and After Show. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they premiere, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon, crypto and thanks button in the info box below the video. Speaking of Patrons, I'm going to do a quick shout out to all of you who do support me on Patreon. So, first and foremost, a massive shout out to my new Patreon, Christopher Fournier, John Travolta, JMels24, my anonymous Patreon, Unamento, M, Iron26, Endless, Flat Earth Sage, Goldie McKinnon, Phoenix Rising 86, Retro Bill, More Books, Cannabear, Fiber Oats, Bogey, Michael Kahn, Rob H, John Kays, Patrick Gunnels, Will Brax, Mel B Styles, Troy Shuker, Airy Blade, Mobile Max 777, Neo the One, Rob W, Open Minded, Reese Pound, Del West Watson, Maria Neelands, Unbelievable Productions, Blue Ridge Ranger, The Real Gabster, Abraham Mohammed, Adrian Quintana, Skeptic 936, Life is Short, Texas Mike, David Wayne Foster, and Dank. So another massive thank you to all of you for supporting me on Patreon. Now I will hand over to whoever is in Google and Gilded, get it right today, so you can enjoy their dulcet tones while I set up for today's live show.
Dr. John D. Compare him to when you bring something to Witsit or Bob or Jiren.
Well, what's the difference?
One is humble and can receive instruction and can continue learning, and
Yeah,
one just
right?
goes on a rant.
Not at all. I spent a solid 10 days, maybe less, maybe more. It's a long time ago.
What was the end result?
The end result was that Dr. John D conceded that his impressions of what science were incorrect. And that science was a method of establishing cause and effect through systematic experimentation based on hypotheses to establish the cause of a naturally occurring phenomena. Well, that's basic stuff that he had been taught, I had been taught, you'd been taught, everybody's been taught it. So it's hard not to argue against it. However, as much as I hate to say it, with Dr. John D, there was a certain aspect of the magical aspect of science that he did indeed utilise, and he didn't want to relinquish it. Now, I'm sure he wouldn't, maybe be a bit hesitant to admit that, but that's how it was. You know, it was a difficult time because I'm attacking a PhD, in essence, based on his fundamental reasoning in science. Who am I to challenge a PhD, in this case, Dr. John D?
Who are you not to?
Well, he was wrong, so I just told him. He was calling a laser demonstration an experiment. That's how I originally got in touch with him, and I'm like, our current sword has a very sharp edge of, is this actually science if you're calling it an experiment? Not him, but Globers. You say you've got an experiment to prove gravity. Is it actually an experiment? Well, if I'm swinging that sword around and you're simultaneously saying, check out my laser firing across a lake, it's a great experiment, that doesn't jive well with me and my dissemination of the information regarding science on my show. Now, at the time, he didn't care. He's not interested in me and my show. He's just interested in, I know what science is. I'm a PhD. I've trained in science. I know what I'm talking about. Who are you to tell me what science isn't when I call something an experiment? Quote, because it isn't. But he conceded, but it just took a while. I'm only correcting you because you're like, well, John D was really humble. He was humble.
No, I didn't say that. I said the end result, the difference when one was humble enough to, and one is still on his rant. I didn't say it was easy. I heard the story with John D. I know.
Sure, but that process is different for every single person. So, as much as the people that you listed prior to me started recording might not be as humble or as willing to concede early or as intelligent or whatever, but it doesn't mean that they're not going to eventually. It doesn't mean that the information will change and we'll somehow become wrong about science proving things with enough time elapsed. That's never going to be the case, is it? We're always going to be right in this, Neil. So,
right.
Different people taking different times. The fact that one of our own, in this case Jaron, has braced against it strongly, well, that's just to his detriment. It's not to mine. And I noticed through some of the Skype comments, I can't remember who it was, I think Arwen replied, saying, this will be good. You know, us being mentioned on a bigger platform, aka Jaron, is nothing but beneficial. And Arwen came back and said, no, you're wrong. The discerning members of their audience have long left. And I think I agree with him.
Yeah, I got you. But then Adam came back with, what about 10th and Neil? So
What about
what's the
what?
big deal?
What about what?
What about 10th Man and Neil? Because we heard about you through Globebusters. So what?
It doesn't change what
That was
Arwen
years
said.
ago.
So the discerning members of his audience, if you want to call yourself that, have already left. That's what Arwen said, and you're just making that statement more true.
Yeah, I know, but Adam didn't think so.
Any evidence of that?
Well, he's trying to be the emissary. I think they long left too. I think they're done. I mean, if you listen to QE's video, it's a very entertaining part. We tell them, get the F out. You
I can only
relieved
go
of
on my
duty.
experience in these things, Neil. When I'm wrong about something, people like to contact me and tell me just how wrong I am about it. Now, in this case, the ballers are actually in agreement with Jerem because it supports their narrative when they claim science that they don't have also. It doesn't alter the fact that there's plenty of discerning people out there, as much as I've said that they're all left based on Arwen's statement, that will no doubt contact Jerem and say, sorry mate, you are wrong. And explain to him why and how he's wrong. And I'm not just talking about people like Flatzoid, who are doing it overtly on a live stream. I'm talking about a bit more covert, a bit more under the radar. Just a quick email to let you know you're wrong. Science absolutely proves cause and effect relationships if adhered to via the method. People will be telling him that. I can only go by my experience. People like to tell me, and I'm sure they'll like to tell him in exactly the same way. You know something that someone else does and they're barking on about it on their live streams, about how wrong someone is about something you understand, you're going to take it upon yourself to contact them, like people take it upon themselves to contact me.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. So you're saying that there's been times where you're wrong about things, and I know it. You admitted where you're wrong. They seem to think that we think we're never wrong, and we can never admit when we're wrong. So it's funny.
Yeah, maybe. But in regards to a personal, whether or not I'm all right or you're wrong or we're right or they're wrong or whatever their opinions are in this regard, we're talking about a specific subject matter, science and the scientific method, and what it does, proves things, and how it does it. If A, then B, or if A, not B, can't violate the law of non-contradiction and have them both simultaneously be true. That's it. That's the scientific method in a nutshell. Well, that's never going to change. We're never going to be wrong
Agreed.
on this.
I agree. It's a fight that they're fighting against. I said it a long time ago. They're fighting against the scientific method because they have an agenda, and it's a no-win situation.
For them.
Correct, for them. Anyone who comes against the scientific method and says no, it doesn't. Science just disproves things.
Can I get a hello from someone in Discord? Endless or just Bill or Stag?
I'll admit it right now. I was woo woo woo. Was woo 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 woo.
I'll admit it right now. I was... Is that what you just said?
We're back on Discord.
Yeah,
Very good.
it's a joke. Couldn't get the wrong out. Good morning.
Morning.
Whoa. Are we back on Gilded or are we on Discord?
No, we're on Gilded. Did I say
Okay,
Discord?
Gilded. Gotcha. What's up, Eli?
Clearly not much.
Yeah, what's up? I don't have a good mic today, so
That's all right. I can hear you clear enough.
Hold on, I gotta get on you for your little video you sent out. After all the harassment you give Eli for not coupling his mic, you dare put out a video like that where all I hear is wind?
Where? What are you talking about? The one at the beach that was private,
Yeah.
that not unpublished for my friends. That video.
Oh, okay. So if it's public, it's got to be perfect. But if it's for anybody else, we're just gonna get the wind sound. I got you.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not going to set up a little studio at the beach for a video to say, look, surprise, I'm not going to be at work this week. I'm on a £5 holiday.
Mic. I'm just having to go at you, buddy.
Yeah, we get cheap holidays here in the newspapers. So if you collect a load of tokens, which my wife did, you get a holiday for a £5, like literally £5.
Nice. My son was actually telling me that McDonald's has an adult Happy Meal now. So,
an adult Happy Meal.
yeah.
Okay.
What is that thing you used to do, or you still do? The ghetto burger or something? What is it? The poor
Ghetto
man's.
burger. I did that all over the weekend. I'm so poor. To reduce your meal price down to about 10 quid for the four of us, what I do is I'll order a double cheeseburger and a chicken mayo, which is about £2.50, instead of the £4 or whatever it is for a Big Mac. And then what you do is you peel out the two burgers and then put the bread from the McMayo and the lettuce and the mayo in between the two burgers. Then you've got a Big Mac minus the sauce, which they won't sell you separately. But with the exception of the sauce, you've then got a Big Mac. And a free chicken nugget that's ginormous.
I think they got the idea from you.
Yeah, a hobo burger.
Good morning.
Morning.
8/10.
Are you all refreshed, energized?
No, I was ill the entire holiday. The moment my body said, you don't have to work no more, he went, right, let's give up. So I had a massive
Oh my
cold. I was
gosh.
sick the entire time.
Oh my.
Such is life. But yes, it was nice all the same. We went to the beach, several beaches actually, and swimming and trekking around, doing nature trails and all sorts of other things. It was good.
Good. Just the three of us so far?
No, there's 4 other people in Discord. 3.
Oh. Well, good morning.
4.
How you doing with your move, 10th? Are you settled in?
Yeah, we're here, just unpacking, and my office is a mess. I have to get some furniture for the computer, but yeah, we're here. The garage is a mess, but the living standards are great, and the kids are great, the grandkids, and it's wonderful.
What do you mean the living standards are great? What does that mean?
Well, that means most of the rooms are with furniture. You could sit down, and
Oh, right, okay.
we've unpacked. So, but there's so much to still put away.
I see. Very good.
Yeah, no, it's good. I like it.
I'll be there in another month. I'll be doing the same thing, and I dread it.
Where are you going to?
Alabama.
Oh, wonderful. Roll
Alabama?
Tide.
Correct.
Why?
New York is done, Nathan. Finished.
Lewis
Over.
Rossman's left. Do you watch Lewis Rossman?
No,
No,
but
clearly not.
I've heard you mention him.
He's the tech guy that does board repair. He's just left New York. Gone to Texas.
Yeah, everybody with a half a brain is leaving New York. Everything costs too much for what you're making to what things cost. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, the left has a way of destroying everything they touch. Their policies make no sense, but they get the votes because they give things away.
That's correct. I explain it like it's like me taking food from my refrigerator while my kids are hungry and going to feed some other people down the road that I don't even know, giving them all the food while my kids are hungry. Well, that's exactly what's going on. You come in that state, you get $100,000, you get a house to live in. Maybe I should become one of them.
Well, that's how they stay in power. They allow illegal immigration, and I'm a big fan of immigration because we immigrated to America the right way. We got all kinds of things my dad and mom had to do, and write a letter saying they'll never go on welfare, and you had to have a letter from the boss from the country you came from saying you're a decent person, no criminal record. FBI met us at the airport, vetted us. That's not it. Now they just come over. Hey, just vote the big D.
From what I hear, they used
that?
to ask questions like, "What can you give? How can you benefit America? What do you have talent-wise?"
Why should you be asked those questions? Why?
Why do you think?
Well,
Why do you think, Nathan?
Well, I know the reason you're going to give, but I'm saying, in principle, you as a person should be able to go wherever the hell you like. Shouldn't be any restrictions. They don't own the land. They make it seem like they own the land. They tell you they own the land. Owning the land is nonsense.
You have a different argument than the one
Yeah,
we
but
have.
they made it that way, Nathan. I agree with you. We should be allowed to travel anywhere we want. But the way they made the system, now it's not good to do that.
What do you think would
No,
happen
you don't.
if, some of the continents on old maps are called new worlds, and space used to be out towards the horizon? Outer space, right? So, in our recent history, we've discovered, quote, new worlds in outer space. Fact. That is what has happened. Now, what would happen now if we discovered a, quote, new world out beyond the horizon with lots of lush land? What do you think would happen? What happened
Governments would steal it.
Well, what happened with America? The whole country's built on immigration.
Yeah, but see, you're doing a whole different argument. That's not the same as
I
like if
don't
you're-
think.
it-
I
well,
can see how
let
you
me
want to.
explain.
Well, you want to make this political, and I want to make it flat Earth debate related.
No, I know, but that's why it's a whole different argument. And I don't mind it as long as we segue to it that way.
Well, I'm trying to segue to it on account of the fact that we've got what was formerly known as outer space being the region beyond the limitations of our horizon, and new worlds being noted on the map as countries or continents that were found in our recent history. No longer called new worlds. But that's what they were.
Hold on. That's fine. If you find new worlds, that's fine. If you're going to do it like that, where anybody can go wherever they want, that's fine. But don't take my freaking dollars and give it to somebody else to get started when I'm struggling. End of story. Flat Earth.
But you gave your dollars away, didn't you? You gave your dollars to that person that's giving them to someone else. You've already relinquished yourself of those dollars. Why do you care?
No, that's not the point. Hang on. This is going way too many corners here. Number one, the laws are in place and the laws are being violated by the government that is supposed to keep those laws. So we got a government out of control. So now we've got people and the governments about to go at each other. In the meantime, the government that is out of control needs votes, so they allow illegal immigration and they buy their votes. This is what Neil is talking about. A country is defined by its borders, culture, and language, as Michael Savage has said. And liberalism is a mental disorder. That's one subject. Now we segue the flat earth debate. Yeah, everyone should be able to travel to new lands and not be impeded whatsoever. But they're not allowing us to do that. And so what are you going to do, Nathan? You're going to form an army and get weaponized and break through the barricade?
No, just draw a distinction between interaction with an overlord, landlord, whatever you want to call the person that you interact with to get Neil's dollars via them into their pocket. Well, that's an interaction with a government system, as opposed to the way it's phrased, which is intentional, which is your entry into a country. So when you entered into that country, you were talking about the interaction with the state officials, the FBI. Well, that's not you entering the country. You entering the country is just you walking on the land and walking around after being on a boat or plane. That's you entering the country. But then you have to interact with that country's government. That's something else.
And your point?
My point is that in flat Earth debate terms, their structures on their quote-unquote land would be very much less powerful if there was more land. And in our recent history, we've discovered more land. Now we have a deception that says there's no more land.
Okay, like I said, good segue, and I agree with you. But that's not the topic we were talking about. We're talking about politicians.
You keep telling me,
votes.
every time I segue away from it, you try and bring it back by pointing out that that's what you were talking about after I've segued.
No, we were talking about politicians buying votes by taking away tax dollars that Neil and I pay, and they get free health care, free housing, free medical, food, everything. And here we are paying taxes and struggling, many families in America, and they don't get to their children first. They give it to because they buy their votes. That's a whole different topic than
What
land.
makes you think they've got it easy? What makes you think that the people on welfare who have taken the dollars out of your pockets, if they had less dollars in their pockets from the government, do you think
Nathan,
that
you don't watch the news? The criminals coming across the border. Venezuela is releasing all these criminals to come to America so they don't have to feed them and care for them in the penitentiaries. Come on now.
Says the news.
You're not up to date.
How do you know that's true?
No, that says the news. My goodness. How about all the people who have been murdered by the illegal aliens, and then when the news comes out and shows who they are and their rap record, they've been arrested 20, 30, 40 times.
I don't believe anything the news says.
Okay, well, then you don't believe the person got murdered then?
No.
My goodness.
Probably not.
Hold
Depends
on,
on
it's the same thing 1980 with Carter. You can't tell me that wasn't true. I was right in the middle of all of that when he opened up the sewers for Cuba to come in.
Yeah, Nathan's out of touch.
I feel like you drink the Kool-Aid. None of the stuff on the TV is real, man.
No, none of this
Not the
stuff
TV.
happens. None of this stuff happens. I just live in California and saw it for myself. My
Okay,
goodness.
that's what I'm interested in. What did you see for yourself?
Everything I just said.
You saw Venezuelan ex-convicts distributed throughout the country and murdering people. That's what you saw with your own eyes.
I saw people from so many cultures, languages, couldn't speak a word of English at all.
And you saw there, and they were in stripes, right, with little arrows on.
Yeah.
Stop.
No. Yeah, you're ridiculous. This is fruitless.
Oh, hold on a second. You've made a claim that the news has said Venezuelan.
You just deny reality in order to prove your point.
Hold on. I've challenged you to provide evidence for what you've seen on the news. So far, you've got lots of people speaking foreign languages. Okay. What else you got?
No one could get a word in edgewise.
I'm just asking you what else you've got.
Well, listen, why don't you give me a week? I'll put a report, get eyewitnesses. They'll come and give testimony. I got friends and testimonies of people, police officers I know, Army, Navy, all kinds of people I know. They give me news and I trust them.
Appeal to the future fallacy. So have you not got any of that stuff?
It's not appeal to the future fallacy.
So you've got all that now? You've got all that now?
I know border agents.
Have you got all of that now?
I just told you I have the evidence. You don't care for it.
What evidence have you got?
Border agents that I know who tell me stories at the border. How's that? Can we start there?
So second-hand border patrol agents telling you that they've dealt with.
Okay, well, secondhand you then. Secondhand you on Flat Earth Debate. Secondhand everything you ever say then. My goodness, you're just a negative person right now. You won't believe anything.
No, I want primary source information to back any claims that have come from the news.
Border agent is primary. Eyewitness border agent is primary, Nathan.
Okay, fine.
Wake up.
Okay. So the border patrol agent said that he had literally let Venezuelan criminals into the country to kill people.
Oh, the ones I knew wasn't. It was Mexican, not Venezuelan.
Okay,
but
Mexican.
What's the difference?
Because you said on the news it was Venezuelan murderers released from prison to take money out of your pockets. That's what you told us. That's what you said.
The latest report, which matches the previous eyewitness testimony of other nationalities of the same ilk. My goodness. They're not letting their best in. Let's put it that way. They're not coming in here to enhance this country, take an oath, learn the language. No, they come here to take from the system. This is what Neil is talking about.
Yeah, you've reasserted your claim. Sorry if I seem hyper-skeptical.
There's about 65 languages you have to. There's 65 plus languages you have to speak when you go to the California DMV. Just go stand in line for 6 hours. You'll know what I'm talking
That
about.
doesn't prove.
Hey, hold
that
on a
doesn't
second.
prove ex-Venezuelan murderers.
Oh, forget it. I
They're
give up.
not all murderers, Nathan. You know
I
what I'm
didn't say
saying.
they were all murderers. My goodness. You're ridiculous, Nathan. Go
I'm not
back
being
on vacation
ridiculous.
and get a burger.
Why? Just because I don't accept what the news says? Bloody
Get a
hell.
real burger and quit mixing burgers. It's affected your thinking and your
Hobo burger.
cognitive
Get it
reasoning.
right.
Hey, I'm not blaming McDonald's for this.
I am.
Hold on a second, Nathan. Listen, I just did a job in JetBlue Airport. Okay, I could not get started for 7 freaking hours because nobody knew what they were doing. There was 5 different languages that had these jobs that could not communicate with me. So there was one guy, American, I guess white guy that was working in the airport, old timer, was ready to retire, shaking his freaking head. Said, "Welcome to America."
Therefore, Venezuelan murderers. Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon, and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon, crypto and thanks button in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. Now, we are joined by, of course, Arwin, joining right in the middle of my introduction, Eli, Neil, 10th Man, and a whole bunch of people in Gilded, so welcome one and all.
I was
Good morning,
3
good morning.
seconds before your introduction, Nathan.
Yeah, there's a 20-second delay.
You're supposed to say hello.
Hello. Good
Hello,
afternoon.
good to be here.
Welcome back.
Nice to see you, Arwin, my absolute favourite of all time. Hopefully you've been keeping
I've been
people
holding
sane
up
while I've
the
been away.
fort here.
I know Flatsoid has. Kudos to you and Flatsoid. Holding the fort, so to speak. I've had a week off in case anyone's watching this after the fact and wondering what the hell I'm babbling on about. I've just been off for a week. On a £5 sun holiday. Very brilliant it was too. Anywho, now we're back. Let's do a bit of housekeeping. Any evidence of a physical geometric sphere-edge horizon, formerly known as the curve of the Earth, since I've been gone?
You're going to need a
Yeah,
radius value
man.
too.
The Earth bulged up and all that. Why did you go away? Now the Earth is all bulged up.
Wait, did Nathan? Did you say you went for a sun holiday? Did you get unknown burn?
Unknown burn? No, it was a late summer holiday, so there wasn't that much sun. By sun holiday, I mean the paper. We have a newspaper called The Sun, and you can gather vouchers from the Sun newspaper and then get a holiday for £5, which is what my wife did. Because we're poor. So we did what poor people do, and we had a sun holiday.
You should come to America. They give you $100,000, give you free healthcare, housing, everything.
Oh, here we go. This political discussion in the pre-show was just very
I don't
irritating.
have
No matter
any
how many, I
holiday.
tried 5 times to segue it back to flat Earth and the outer space that was formerly beyond the horizon and the new worlds that were labelled on the maps after recently being discovered and then inundated by immigrants. Now, the powers that should not be that have set up shop on these lands that are owned by nobody and dictate what you're going to do when you get there are considered to be the land, and landing on it, they're not. But anyway, that's in the pre-show.
A little different than we had, but go on. But yeah, you're going to need an R value to have that curvature, but we don't even have that.
Any evidence of the R value? That's Earth radius.
No, there's no evidence of it because you don't have curvature. The horizon is not Earth curve.
Any evidence of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety? Feel free to join in, Gilded.
I was talking to a guy here in Idaho now, and his brother was there with him, and he found out I was a flat earther, and he says, well, tell him. I go, tell him what? He wanted me to do the flat earth thing with him. So I said to him at one point, I said, do you feel the earth is spinning? And he said, no. And I go, then why do you believe it? And it was just this big silence.
Hey, Chocolate. Check. Hey, Chocolate. Any evidence of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety?
We wouldn't expect to see any Coriolis deviation on a ball based off a flat Earth model.
I'd agree with that. So would Sam and Dan. Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
Nope. No distance to any of the celestials. Just apparent distances. I mean, whereas the celestials are about as local as the horizon is.
Next time, Brian's... Sorry, go ahead. Brian, perfect timing. Go ahead, whoever it was that asked. Go on.
Yeah, it was me. But Brian's here. So, Brian, why do they want distances to luminaries in light years? What's the purpose for that?
Why do they want it in light years? Well, because they have to have the. Well, it starts off with the. I'm fading back on someone there. It starts off with the sun, you see, because they have to call the sun a star, and that we rotate or orbit around that star. But the whole point of it is actually shadows. It goes back to Eratosthenes, because with Eratosthenes, they had to claim that the sun was very big and far away. I'm still feeding back on somebody there. They had to claim the sun was very big and far away to make the shadows work on a curved surface on a globe. Because otherwise the shadows, if the sun is small and local, then all shadows prove that it's not a globe. And that's admitted by them. So that's where that started. And then they needed to eventually come up with this 40 light year because they needed to be able to make the stars all like basically a load of suns in basic terms that were all really far away, just like our sun is really far away and really big. That's where that all originated from, because it comes from shadows. That's the real reason they need light years, if you think about it.
So what about the speed of light? How did they arrive at that?
Well, the best they've got is a guy called Fizeau, and he was claimed, I can't remember the date, but it was definitely a long time ago. It wasn't in the 19th century. It was way back in at least the 1800s. And he is claimed to have measured a series of microseconds. Now, microseconds, there's 1,000 microseconds in 1 second. So if he measured 16 of them or something stupid like that, because he had a distance that was just less than a two-way, like it's the two-way, the full two-way distance was just less than 10 miles. So for what he did. So like all he had was like the claim is a two-way claim, not a one-way claim. And he had a distance of less than 10 miles. So if you think what a light year is supposed to be, one light year is basically 1 AU, which is basically the average distance between the globe and the heliocentric sun over a 12-month period. That's around 92, 93 million miles an hour. Or, sorry, 92, 93 million, let's say, statute miles. So for him, and it takes the sun in their model, takes it I'm still feeding back on somebody, or somebody's speaking through that.
Maybe try and mute for just 1 second while I follow up with the question that you can strap onto the end, and after you've muted, it should sort the problem. It's just because you started talking as soon as you joined. So maybe try pop yourself on mute just now. There we go. Once you've finished wrapping this up, lots of commenters have been asking, is it possible to actually get the distance to the sun now we know that the Earth is flat? It's paraphrased to now you know, which makes me think that they're ballers, implying that we should be giving them the straw man for the false dichotomy. But I'll take it as it's read and say to you, after you finish whatever you're summarising for 10th now, if you can explain why that isn't possible to just derive a distance to the sun now we know it's a flat plane. But feel free to continue. Hopefully that will resolve the feedback issue.
Yeah, well, yeah, I answered that pretty swiftly. Yeah, within our model, it's a 8.03 minutes it takes the light to get from their sun to their globe Earth. So how did they calculate this from? This is, it's still getting feedback. I don't know, I just say keep going. Just telling you, Nathan, so you know. But how did they calculate this or measure this within a couple of microseconds? They never did. They started off with a pre-assumption, because Fizeau was only working off of the original pre-assumption, which is that it all has to fit with Kepler's analemma. It does like they had to pre-assume a globe, pre-assume a particular size of a globe due to a pre-assumed radius, pre-assume that the sun was XYZ, pre-assume we orbit around it, and pre-assume that it was a certain distance away. So it's like I mean, a couple of microseconds. I'd say a computer would have even what we have now with the technology we have now, to get a computer to measure that speed, you can't find a computer that can actually measure what they call the speed of light, even what they call the two-way. You can't even get a computer to measure it. It would have to be calibrated to what they already believe it to be. Because like a couple of microseconds, if there's 1,000 microseconds in every 1 second, then over a 10-mile distance, like which would be less than 5 miles for Fizeau, less than 5 miles in both directions, right? Could he have measured microseconds? Like it'd be a tiny amount of like 16 microseconds or something stupid like that. How could he ever have measured that? If
16 microseconds of what?
In today's world,
what's it measuring?
Wouldn't be able to measure that.
What's that? What's he measuring?
Did he have a supercomputer brain? No, he just calculated based off of it. He calculated it based off of an already existing pre-assumption.
What's it?
No,
you keep saying that
the speed
and
of
it.
light. Sorry,
he's calculated that
light.
and it. What is it?
Sorry.
So he's saying he's calculated whatever number of microseconds, but what specifically is actually claimed to be being measured?
The two-way speed of light.
Yeah, but
the two-way speed of light.
I get that. I know what we're talking about, but what I'm saying is, if I say, based on my model with a derivation of an R and Venus having the same R as Earth and the distance to the Sun being derived from Kepler's third law of interplanetary motion and all the scaling values applied with those two assumptions in place, I get this distance to the Sun. And the light travelling takes this long, 8 point whatever seconds you said. I thought it was 7, but that's just probably common mistakenly put into Wiki. In any event, they give you a value. Then they say they've measured that value. Now, I get what you're saying. They're saying that the distance in that model, which we don't exist in, is a certain distance. Therefore, you can get the speed. Okay. What do they physically claim to actually measure?
The distance to the Sun.
So it's based in the heliocentric model based on the derivation from Kepler's third law. So there's no actual measurement. It's a derivation from the model.
Yeah, there's 4. You have to pre-assume 4 things before you can even calculate. So you're not measuring.
Sure. But to get this speed, this is an arbitrary number that is not measured. So when they say they've measured it to a certain number of nanoseconds, they're talking about how they've calculated it down to that value, as opposed to actually measuring anything at all.
Yeah, that's all it is. It's a pure calculation based on a belief, a
Fine.
heliocentric belief.
Fine, so we can expand on that. So we can say that based on elevation angle measurements to Polaris and the use of the celestial sphere model, you can derive a world that's sphere-shaped after conversion. That conversion, once given you an R value, can be superimposed onto Venus, a light in the sky, to give you the ability to apply Kepler's third law. And in so doing, it scales out every light in the sky, including the sun, and gives you a distance to it. But you have to guess one of the values, the size of one of the planets, in this case Venus. And once you've guessed that, you can then use Kepler's third law to give you all of the numbers in terms of distances and therefore speeds. But there is no actual measurement of this speed of light. There is no speed of light. It's total horseshit.
Yeah, and the question
Can
you
anybody
asked.
hear me?
Yes, we can now.
The question
Yay.
you sorry.
Good morning, guys. Sorry.
Hey, Chocolate. Just one sec, though.
The-
Go ahead, Brian.
The question you asked about why we can't measure distance to the sun, all we have is angles. So all you have is an apparent position, an apparent distance. All you have is an apparent let's just say, position, because you're measuring perspective. And all you get out of that is a subsolar point, or on the Earth, or like a GP point on the Earth. You're only measuring that. As soon as your angle changes, then whatever the distance to the sun that you measured last time will be different. So you can never get a measurement to the sun. Like, for instance, a question I put into, I think it was the War Room over the weekend, is if I take let's say a 35.1 degree angle to the sun, then the GP point of that sun will be the same distance away from me as if I take a 35.1 degree angle to a star. So, how could the sun, under those conditions, be closer or further from the stars that we see in the sky? Do you know what I mean? We have no idea what the sky is.
Right.
You can take several people taking angles and calculate it out, but as soon as any of those angles change, your final calculation will change.
You guys remember back in 2015 where they showed some deep sea exploration where they got down to a certain level and found what looked like another layer of liquid, and they tried to go down into it and just basically bounced off it, but it looked like the edge of a cliff at the bottom of the ocean with another layer of ocean beneath the ocean that they couldn't penetrate.
Yeah, it was super saline, and they couldn't go into it. It was so dense they couldn't send their little submarine thing down into it. It wouldn't go into it.
But in terms of, as it's a flat Earth debate, and we might as well talk about stuff that is commonly associated with stories of flat Earth or assertions of that. The turtles on top of turtles on top of turtles thing. You all familiar with this?
Yes.
Yeah, I am.
Turtles all the way up.
Turtles all the way down. Correct. Well, that notion has a layer cake of Earth as opposed to what we know it is not, which is a sphere Earth in a vacuum flying through space around a spherical sun. Well, if we don't know what's below, what's to say that the principle is any different above? But just in terms of the density. So it's interesting you got straight to the nub of it, which was that it's super dense. Makes sense, right? It's got a whole load of stuff on top of it, pressing down on it. So it's going to be under tremendous pressure at the bottom of the ocean. Well, the adverse is true as you go up, right? Less and less pressure. So what's to say that there isn't another region beyond what we know that's just not attainable for us? In the same way, it's not attainable for a fish to go into our realm, if you will. It's just a layer below us. Yes, Nathan, very interesting.
No, that was a cool take. I like that.
I'm not saying it's turtles, by the way.
No, Nathan, but it's true. I mean, we can't go down into that layer. It's first of all, it's so deep we can't send men down there, and secondly, you can't go into the layer. I think it's so deep you can't send. I don't think a manned vehicle can go down. But either way, you can't go into the layer with a submarine. It was even in
I don't know why they just hook them up with some aluminum foil. That seems to work out beautifully. Some aluminum foil, some duct tape.
Oh, you're talking about the pantomime that is space and the claims of outer space, the sky vacuum, and what takes place in that fake place that they stage on Earth, on sets, with high wire. And in that fake place, where Buck Rogers also resides, and astronauts reside, well, they can put tin foil around things to stop huge amounts of pressure escaping from a vessel, and if that does get breached, they can just stick their thumb over it, things like that. But, you know, you can have a bionic man, you can have Sonic the Hedgehog come from space, you can have all sorts of things come from space. But space, in that context, outer space, isn't real. So you can make up whatever you like.
I think you all missed Brian's clever pun. In order to go there, you need a super sailing certification.
Any evidence you can have gas pressure without the necessary antecedent of a container to press upon?
Gradient, Nathan, gradient.
Yeah? What about it?
That's a throwback.
I'm doing this because
layers, like layer cake, Nathan. So.
Mikey.
Yeah, what about it? Gas pressure. Gradient. It's still a gas pressure. It still needs to press on something.
You can't have gas pressure without a container. If it was possible to have gas pressure without a container and not to look past plasma being held in place by a toroidal field, because that's a different thing. Because plasma is ionized gas, it's not gas. So people have shown that to people. And I'm sure it still goes on Facebook and TikTok and stupid places like that, where people show people plasma being held in place by a toroidal field to someone who's uneducated on the matter.
Oh, no. That still has a container?
It does, yeah. Well, that's the thing about it. The toroidal field is within what? It's within hydrogen fusion reactor, which is a container.
Right.
They require that for all things.
So they're saying that they've got a gas pressure without a container in a container?
They've got a container which they need to have for the vacuum in the first place.
So they've got a vacuum they've got a container for their vacuum to create gas pressure without a container inside a container. So it's not without a container in a container, it's just in a container.
Yeah, it's not possible to create vacuum, temperature, or pressure without a container.
The containment's definitely required then. I had to blow some guy's poor sod's mind when I went on holiday this week. So I got there, and being a smoker, I couldn't smoke in the caravan that we had rented. So I sat in the car like an idiot. I left one of the lights on. So I came back the following morning. Actually, not the following morning. About 4 o'clock in the morning, after being sick several times, I looked outside and saw a little flashing, blinking LED from inside the car. And I went, oh no. Oh, no. So I went outside and it wouldn't work. I couldn't even get the damn thing unlocked because obviously it's electronic. So I had to call the guy from the caravan park, the maintenance guy, who comes down to try and jump it with a car, and it didn't work. Sorry, the segue won't last long, I promise. But then he got a battery zapper thing which worked perfectly. And while we're sat there figuring out how to get this car running, it just got a flat battery. He asked me what I did, and of course I had to tell him. And he poked, and because it was just me standing there with a dead car and I couldn't escape, eventually I had to tell him what I did. Now, what I try and do, if somebody asks me what I do so I can avoid the conversation when I don't want to have it. For instance, when we got back, my youngest daughter had a seizure. We called an ambulance, and they did the same thing before taking my kid to hospital. What do? Why is there all this sound treatment everywhere? And you go, I do a show on, quote, cosmology. That's normally enough to put people off asking any further questions. But in this guy's case, Not a bit of it. Cosmology, what's that then? Oh, God, it's coming. I can feel it. So while we sat there, I had to take him through gas pressure without a container. Now, eventually, he caught me out, because this guy was just inquisitive, right, this mechanic. And eventually he started asking me about various different religions that understood the Earth to be flat. And I didn't have any. I just thought, I don't know. I think I rattled off one that was probably wrong. But he completely caught me out, because it's like, it's not something I ever really look into. But there we go. I had to flat smack the guy, just because he charged my battery and ruined his day. Told him that space was
Why
fake.
you hiding that you're a flat earther anyway?
I don't normally like flat smacking people. Typically, you don't have to... Go on.
You're on vacation from Flat Earth, Neil. You don't talk about it.
It's not that I just don't like ruining people's day. No, that guy had done nothing wrong, right? No, I empathise with the people on the top of the hill. I don't empathise with the people at the bottom of the hill with us that are saying it's a globe. What? They've already fallen down the hill. But your average Joe normie that stood at the top of the hill, just going about his business on his globe. Now, I don't want to ruin that guy's day. That's not ever my intention. I'm not envious. I don't want to be back on the hill oblivious to the fact that we're being lied to about being on a sphere and blissfully go about my day not really thinking about it, and if it ever comes on TV or you see it in Superman, you don't give it a second thought. You just suspend disbelief. Well, I don't necessarily want to take that away from anybody. That's not my bag. I don't want to do that. If they come here and find their way to us here, that's different. Then it's fair game. But just guy who's helping me out, I don't want to ruin his day and tell him that his entire worldview is a complete sham.
See, that's the problem.
Sometimes you can't help that though, right? Because like the guy that was driving the Uber driver who was taking me to the airport one time, who just I wasn't planning on speaking at all. I just wanted to sit in the back and listen to my music. And he wouldn't stop talking and telling me how flat and beautiful the water he was just looking at was. And I was just like, oh my God, like I don't even want to go there, but eventually I'm gonna have to, because he's used the word flat, first of all, like 5 times to describe how beautiful the water was and how far he could see. And I'm just like, oh my God. All right, I guess I'm gonna just have to do it real quick because he just won't stop. And I did. I was just like, it just looks like that because that's what it is. And then he was like, wait, what do you mean? Can you hear me? I'm sorry.
No, I just thought chocolate was finished twice. Sorry. Nathan, when Matt Powerland.
All right.
I guess I'm finished. Listen, it's all right. When you listen to Matt Powerland, did it ruin your day?
Look, this is going to descend into chaos just because 10th's done it and carried on. Yeah, just let him. Then we'll get back to chocolate. Go ahead, 10th.
When you listened to Matt Powerland for the first time, did that ruin your day?
Yeah. Well, I don't want to say it ruined my day. It was a massive life-changing event, hearing Matt Powerland saying flat Earth without being in ridicule. Yeah, it did. It altered my life forever.
Okay, but did it ruin your life, your day? Do you have a show now because of it? You're enjoying staying at home? Come on.
That's a question of perspective. That's a question of perspective with the same exact input, isn't it? So I won't say no. I've made a career of it. So no. Okay. But I'm saying that there's a good chance that you'll ruin someone's day.
Hang on. This is the point I'm opposed with you at. It's not ruining anyone's day when you alert him that the reality that he's given is not real, and there's a way to check it out and find out. It's now, if they don't want it, you stop talking, and that way you don't ruin his day. But if he's interested, you keep talking, and you don't ruin his day. So you talk to those that have ears to hear, and you don't talk to those that don't have ears to hear. It's pretty simple.
That's what he said.
I've got a habit of ruining people's day with this.
Nah, some people want to hear it, and their day will get ruined anyway. That's just how it's going to happen.
I just see the look in their eyes when you tell them this stuff. The contemplation. Go ahead, whoever that was.
Can you finish your story, Chocolate?
Shout out to Godzilla. Says 5 days off equals 5 more hours. No, it doesn't. Thank you for the super chat, though. Chocolate, go ahead.
The story was pretty much finished. It was just basically like the guy's driving me to the airport, couldn't stop telling me how flat and beautiful this water that he just went to go visit was. And I just had to tell him, yeah, it's just because it's just flat. And he kind of just looked at me through the rear view. What do you mean? Well, what I mean is, basically what you described to me is what it actually is, as opposed to what you think it is, which is a ball. And he got quiet and said, nah, that's no. And I said, what do you mean no? You just told me it's flat 15 times. You just told me how far you could see how beautiful it is. Yeah. Maybe you should check that out. And I didn't really want to get into any more than that because I just wanted to enjoy my cab ride. But that's how I left him. And he kind of stopped talking to me about how beautiful, in fact, the vacation spot was. And I kind of ruined his day. He seemed like a nice guy, but, his day got ruined.
Shout out to Sensual Goat, who says, it's a shame that having hosted Dave Weiss twice, Sean Atwood's channel is now hosting Sky Vacuum Priests punting crap. Those blue pills must really work. Thank you for the super chat. I've got to be honest, I haven't actually kept up with Sean Atwood's channel of late, so I didn't know that.
See, and I still disagree. I'll let Eli talk before I do, but go ahead, Eli.
Or don't. It's up to you. I mean, we're all good.
Or
We're only
don't.
live.
All right. Yeah. All right. So I disagree with you and Chocolate here because, oh gosh, what's going on here?
Well, I mean, you guys know I'm working. Typically, that it takes me a minute, couple of seconds to unmute my mic, unless I want to do it in the middle of going 20 miles an hour. Like, this is stuff Why are you getting so irritated, Sam?
Because it's irritating.
Who's irritated?
Because it's annoying.
I gave you the floor. I gave you the floor, and you say I'm irritated. What the heck?
What's going on? You sound like Nathan, who's always irritated.
Sounds like me. I was about to say you sound like 10th, moaning at me for saying I'm not real in the pre-show.
Sounds like Eli's irritated.
Loud noises.
No, I honestly, I don't know why I didn't have anything to say. I didn't say
You were
anything.
taught.
Well, that was a very worthwhile disclaimer then. Thank you so much for the lecture.
Oh, gosh. I see dead people. Anyway.
Calm down, Mr. President.
But there are no Venezuelan murderers imported into the States. It's all nonsense. Don't believe what you see on the news.
I knew it. As soon as you said that, I knew Nathan was going to come with that.
That's right. He lives near London where all kinds of the same things happen, but he just doesn't want to find out about it. He might ruin his day. Anyway, back to this guy.
Propaganda.
Back to this guy. Oh, gosh. All right.
I knew this would develop a discussion, 10th. What's that you say, propaganda? No, according to 10th.
Oh, no. Propaganda. Good one. Anyway, why you and Chocolate think it's ruining someone's day if they decide to have a conversation with you willingly?
Because there's a 50-50 chance they'll turn into an anti-flat earther. I don't know if it's 50-50, but I'm just throwing that out there.
What does that matter? If someone's willing to have a discussion on a subject matter.
You mute Eli. Eli.
All right.
If someone's willing, keyword, to have a discussion with you on a subject matter that you are, say, well studied on, why would you not have it?
Same reason that you wouldn't necessarily want to tell people that the news isn't necessarily trustworthy. 10th, similar thing.
No, I tell them that, but not all the news is false. I mean, see, this is the problem. You think that everything is a lie.
Yeah, I'm a hyper skeptic in that regard. Yes, very little I take as being true unless it's actually been verified. Yes, I'll totally agree with that.
Right. So primary source is good enough for you?
Primary source, yes, that's basically the gold standard.
Okay, good. So I know border agents. I know people in the FBI. I know these people and their primary source, and they tell me things. So.
All right, before you get into that, hold on then.
But that's not what I want to talk about.
All right, go ahead. I'm sorry.
All right. So it happened. I had two people asking me about flat Earth this weekend here in Idaho. Well, if they're asking me, I'm not thinking, well, if I start talking, I'm going to ruin their day. I'm not even thinking that. I'm thinking they're asking me, so I'm going to start. And because I asked the right questions, it progressed properly. I mean, I saw the eyes roll back in the head. I saw it all. And they answered all the questions and realized that NASA has lied to them and that their own 5 senses tell them something else. And many other things we covered. And we didn't have a bad situation whatsoever occur. I didn't ruin anybody's day.
Okay.
Now, I don't know if they're going to be a flat earther or not.
Okay.
Can I get back in the queue?
You can, but let me just make one point, which is having to recontextualize something, which typically I contextualize in a completely different way. Conspiracy Cat's discussing his interaction with flat Earth in general, with Haunted House. Now, when I reference this, typically I say that he's talking about himself in the third person. When he talks about his mate that would find out that the Earth's flat and then have to contemplate all of the different things that would also potentially be lies in their world and how devastating and how much sleep you'd lose over that. Well, without recontextualizing how he paraphrased it, or how I've just paraphrased it, in the third person, he is describing Conspiracy Cats in this instance, that person that I'm talking about ruining their day. He's talking about that person's contemplation of all the further lies that would necessarily have to be contemplated if you understand that there's been a deception afoot when it comes to the nature of the reality of a sphere Earth that you thought you were standing on. Now, he's describing it in the third person, and so am I, when I say I don't want to ruin someone's day. There you go.
Okay, but in the long run,
say, can I add to that though? Like in the context of the story that I told, right? Like the guy didn't ask me. Like I understand what you mean. If somebody's asking you about it, it's going to ruin their day. But at the same time, I've had that happen because I've had people that know I'm a flat earther want to have the conversation, and then they get to that point at some duration in the conversation where they'll tell me their head starts to hurt, or they can't deal because the consequences of what I am saying means their entire life is some type of a lie and they can't deal with that. So in the beginning of the conversation, it was all cool. Everything was gravy. But then after that, once the thinking starts to get a little too deep, they stop me. They cut me off. Like, okay, great. Yeah. Let's continue tomorrow or maybe never, or I always get something. Even that one time I told you, I got somebody who put his fingers in his ears and said, la, 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 I can't have this conversation.
They're the ones you don't talk to.
All right, let me answer that. Eli, do you want to say something this time?
I was going to say, Eli, do you want to, you in the queue?
Yes. Thank you. So 2 points. The point that you're making, Seth, is exactly what Nathan says. Typically, he doesn't just talk to people straight out because he doesn't know whether or not they're gonna want to talk about it. But if they show a general interest, he can't refuse. Like that's literally what he said. Second of all, I don't understand how you don't see a parallel between you saying you have primary sources and Zanuck saying he has primary sources. So I don't get it, but okay.
Well, Zanuck is a known liar. My gosh, this is crazy.
Yeah, that's not a fair comparison, really, Eli, but there we go. I knew what your sentiment was, though. What you're saying is that there's honest people out there that would appeal to primary sources about war and the things that people have done in war, and then you dig a little bit into what they're claiming, and it's not actually true. They've stretched the truth a little bit, let's just say. Anyway, moving on.
Yeah, well, some of you ostriches need to get your head out of the ground sometimes. Anyway, back to ruining a day or not ruining a day. I was in that cigar shop a couple of weeks ago, and we were having a great old time talking about sports. And the guy made a gesture with his hands about the Earth being a planet. It was a perfect segue for me to say, so you think we live on a planet? That was my entry. It was a question. He says, his eyes looked at me in a weird way. He says, what, you don't think we live on a planet? And then I said, well, wouldn't a planet need a radius? And off it went. Next thing you know, we're in there an hour and a half. The owner's friend, that guy, and another guy are all involved, happy to discuss everything. I went through housekeeping questions. I even got their phone numbers. I've already sent them links to your show. See what happens when you just, and they didn't ask me about flat Earth. He just said planet. And I said, what, do you think you live on a planet? So one of them has already responded to me and said, thanks for the link. I will listen to this. So I don't understand why we have to wait till someone asks me or you. If they say something heliocentric related, you can pose a question. Depending on their interest level, they might answer, they might not.
We're not saying that. Let me draw it to a different comparison, right? Just because you've made it very salesy in terms of the way you look for your opening, and I can relate, right? Former salesman. But when I was in sales and on the clock doing what I did it very well. Made good sales, made good money, drove a nice car, all those good things about sales. But as much as I loved hi-fi and loved going into studios and flogging them amplifiers and going into dealers and flogging them equipment, once I was off the clock, if somebody asked me, how do I wire up my AV system? I can't seem to get Dolby Atmos to work via optical. I'd go, I don't care. I don't want to know. I don't want to tell you how to wire up your AV system when I'm not on the clock. Just similar sort of, it's shop. It's different for you. Maybe it's not different for you guys. I don't want to speak for you, but obviously this is my job. And as much as I absolutely love my job, when you're out on your holiday in the scenario I gave you, I don't necessarily want to stand there and talk shop with him, which is how it essentially is for me personally. It's talking shop.
So keep people in handcuffs, right?
I'm not saying anybody. Let's just clear that up. Before you go on, nobody has to do anything, right? Me saying I'll potentially avoid talking about flat Earth with somebody who's, in this case, helping me out with a flat battery. Yeah, that doesn't mean you have to avoid it. Go and shout it from the hilltops. While you're doing it, tell them flat Earth debate's on.
I had a situation on Saturday evening time. I was in a local shop I go to. Well, it's a big shop, like, but it's the local one, Tesco's. And I know that I'm up there so much and so often over the years that I know basically all the staff. And I often end up being there at times where I get to talk to the staff because it's like on a low time, like late at night maybe, where there wouldn't be a lot of people in there. And I had two of the girls that work there talking to me, asking me what I do. And I wouldn't tell them. I didn't want to tell them because I don't want the situation to arise where I become a bad guy. Because it's not that I won't say anything to them about it. It's that if I say something to them and they go, oh, they might see me as weird afterwards, or they'll see me as whatever, and consequently then they have a different view of me. And it's like I don't mind the general public that don't know me. I don't mind that. But people that I know, I'd rather not have to have that conversation with them. Unless they really want to have it, then okay. But, I'd warn them in advance. If you really want to have this, I'll have it. But, there's even a member of staff up there who I have a laugh with, who has never ever would have ever looked into anything. And the past 2 years that happened changed his whole view of society. But even him, and he talked to me about things like that all the time, right, the past 2 years. But even him, I won't bring up the subject with. Because people just suddenly view you differently.
Yeah,
you're not that same person anymore.
Yeah,
Ted thinks that we don't believe anything and everything is a lie because we're
no, Nathan said that. Nathan said that. I didn't say you. I didn't clump you in.
Well, I agree with him, so you may as well.
Okay, all right, then I clump you in.
Sorry, let's just clear this up.
Call me a news denier. Go ahead.
Got to clear this up.
Make it feel good.
We're not saying we don't believe anything. Hold on. You're just taking it to an extreme that I don't like. Right. No, we're not saying we don't believe anything. We're saying that unless it's got substantial evidence to back it, based on the delivery method, in this case mainstream news, I'm not willing to accept it without much stronger evidence. So it's Boy Who Cried Wolf. Okay? The news have cried wolf many, many, many times. Well, therefore, the standard for acceptance of their information, the standard goes up, exponentially up. And at the point that you figure out you've been, as we're talking about it, with people who have their day ruined because they're suddenly having to contemplate the lies they might have been told in other areas, that's exactly what we're talking about. One of them is the news. Well, if you figure out that they've lied to you everything that they deliver to you has to have an aspect, for me and Eli, of hyper-skepticism applied to it. Therefore, the standards go up. The evidence that they've got to provide when they make any statements has got to be higher than it was before. For me. Not you.
Oh, no, first of all, that's false. I agree with that last summary. You said 100%. I tell people the news lies often. So don't throw me in that gap. So anyway, back to the point I'm trying to make. When someone is asking a proper question, and I think this was based on Brian with the two ladies at that work that he didn't want to get into it because he didn't want to be looked upon as, oh, you're one of those flat earthers. I don't start that way. You start with a question. My goodness, learn some skills here.
Hey, Kent, that's the exact question my brother presented to me when I said, he goes, what, you think we live on a planet? That's strange that's how you start that out, because that got my attention.
Well, no, thanks, Neil, because I've done that many times, and people say, what, you don't believe we're on the earth that's a ball? Or they'll say, oh, are you one of those flat earthers? My response is, do you feel earth rotating right now? They go, no. And I go, so why do you think and believe we're rotating? Because someone told you? Question mark. And they say, well, yeah. I mean, why would they lie? Back to Chocolate Song. It just opens up for another question. I go, well, do governments lie to their people? They go, yeah. And I go, well, do corporations and tech companies lie to their people? Yeah. I go, so when they tell you you're spinning, but you have no evidence of spin, what would you call that? Did you see? It's just asking questions.
Yeah, but it's asking people to alter a paradigm. And the way that alteration comes about is by acceptance of the suspension of disbelief. So in the Matrix, when Neo's fully up to speed, he knows he's been in a simulation, he's been pulled out of the simulation, he goes into a training program. He knows he's plugged into a computer that's just stuck a spike in his head. He knows he's in the computer. And yet, he has a fight in the training session, and after he loses, he's hungover, doubled over, panting. And Morpheus turns around to him and says, you think that's air you're breathing? Because up until that point, as much as even Neo, who's been unplugged and knows it, has a completely different way of understanding his reality ahead of him. And even after the fact, he still has some of those old things attached to him. Now, unlike Neo, your average Joe normally on top of the hill, wandering around oblivious, suspending disbelief about being on a sphere, none of those things have even... It's not that they've got a list of things that they might have to contemplate in the rest of their day. They haven't got any things that they need to contemplate. Suddenly, that person that might be worried about their mortgage or their kids' schooling or whatever it is that they're stressed about that day, their wife leaving them, whatever it is that they've got on their plate, suddenly you've added to it. Because they've got to contemplate the nature of their reality and paradigm shift from being on a ball to having been lied to from left, right, and centre and all the other things that might not be true as a result. I don't know. This is going to be a debate that I like having because I agree with Tenth, and I admire the fact that Tenth's got this attitude. I wish everyone had that attitude.
I want to ask Brian a question. Brian, were the two young ladies pretty?
Come on, Neil.
Yeah, but that's not the point, Neil. The point is I know them. The point is I know them, and yeah, but they're too young for me anyway, Neil.
Oh, okay. So they would have started making fun of you, you're saying?
No.
Look at your difference. I know exactly what you mean. Brian, I used to work in Tesco as a driver, and I used to go in, load up the van, and up until a point before my YouTube channel was popular, there was a transition stage where I was doing both. And hardly anybody at work knew that I did it, and that was how it stayed for the longest time. And you go in, you say hello, 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 hello. You get on with your driving. Then a few people found the channel, and then that changed the way I worked from then on in. You know, you'd walk in, it's a ball. You don't want to hear that when you're just in to do your work.
Yeah.
Oh shoot!
I can't lie. Sorry, Eli. Go ahead, bro.
No, I was saying that's exactly what it's like. It's annoying because number one, people are going to try to get you into a conversation that you already know they don't want to have. Because the moment you say anything of substance of any kind, they go, oh, yada, 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 science, and then who gives a fuck? Yeah, sorry, excuse the cursing. You know, like, so, I mean, yeah, I love to talk to people about this. There's ways to open up, but I also get what Brian's saying because when I first like found out like about all this, the only thing I asked my people, like, you know, just a particular community of like 100+ people, and I said, hey, you guys like, I don't. What do you think about the moon landing? Have you questioned it? Thank you. And they immediately was like, oh, what do you mean? What are you, one of these flat earthers or something? Like, of course we went to the moon, like the rocket technology and the blah 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 blah. So you know, after that you become the flat earther, and it's like really annoying. You walk into a room and they're like, "Hey, yo, he believes it's flat," but they don't want to talk about it. They just want to joke at your expense.
What they're actually doing
that's why you're the one that starts it off by going into the room and saying, "Hey, anybody found any measurements of curvature yet?" Because that's what I did.
No, but you're proactively combating that, Chocolate. But your attitude's very positive in that regard. But I think what's being described by Eli is a sharing of the pain, as we describe it. In other words, they don't want to have to contemplate it, and it's easier to pour scorn on the person that's told them when they walk in, attack the individual. So when I used to walk into work and hear people going, it's a ball, or whatever example I can give, what went through my mind was, yeah, share your pain. Because you're contemplating it. You're telling me that you're contemplating it. But not in a way that means you're going to do any research, a way that contemplate, then reject. How can I reject? Poke fun at the person that's told me. Or declare my faith to the person that's told me. It's a ball is their declaration of their faith that they didn't want to have to be contemplating.
Exactly. Like the guys said when I knew I was going on vacation, they knew I was going down south, and what they said to me was, right at break time when everybody was there, be careful, don't go too far, you may fall off the edge.
Exactly.
So
share your pain.
Back with you have an edge.
Well,
share your pain.
I don't know why you guys look at that as a bad thing. That means you're living in their head rent free.
I live in plenty of people's bed rent free, I assure you.
No, but my point is, I'm not trying to make everyone do what I do. That's not my point. In fact, I don't believe in coercion or compulsion and compulsory to force anyone anywhere. But if I don't go in their room and start a conversation, okay, if they say something and I don't know them, and there isn't someone in between, a friend of his who's also a friend of mine, it may never come up. But the point is, if the situation is right and you feel that most of the time, it isn't anything that you plan for, it'd be on the spot, when you're out one day, then you say something. And then that starts it off. And if they continue, you keep going. But if they say, look, I'm not interested, you say, yeah, no problem. I respect that. And you stop. It's real simple. But if I could put a thought in their mind, I don't look at it as ruining their day. I think it's planting a seed that somebody else from some other corner in their social group will be able to water. And then eventually that person will do some research. So I just disagree with you guys when you guys label it as ruining their day. I don't think it's ruining their day.
Well, to answer what Neil was asking me, the whole point is that these are people I see on a regular basis. I know them and they know me, and I have a good reputation with these people. And it's not that I'm hiding what I do, but if I tell someone what I do and they come at me with questions, I'm going to annihilate their questions. I'm not going to half do it. I'm going to have to say, well, blah, blah, blah. And then it becomes a combative situation because people do not want to be told that what they've been told their whole life is wrong. And I just try not to have that with
Wait a second,
people.
Brian, you said one time you'd go into a party and you would be happy to ruin that freaking party. Was that a different situation?
That's a different situation, Neil. I'd be happy to go into a room full of people and tell them all from a podium where they're wrong. I have no problem with that. And if some of those people in there are people I know, well, they'll have to tolerate it. I'm talking about day-to-day interactions with people that, you know, like, I just don't want to have that all the time. Every time I'm up there so often at the shop, I don't want to have to be dealing with that, where people are giving me strange looks, or they're getting, or, you know, I just don't want to have to. One time it came up there, and what happened was, this guy started asking me questions, and he was working there, nice fella, and I answered a couple of his questions. But then the next time he saw me, I'm at his till, right? And there's a whole line of people there, and he's asking me questions about this subject that is obviously controversial. This is a couple of years ago. And it was kind of like, you kind of put me on the spot here, where I might have to defend questions from people around me, or people around me here who I don't know, will see me strange. I don't mind if I'm up on a podium telling 2,000 people you're wrong, but I don't want to have that one-on-one thing in the shop. I just want to go to the shop and get along with people.
Yeah, that's not a problem, Brian. I'm not saying you should start it or you're committed to responding every time someone says the word planet. You get a feel for the room. You get a feel for what's happening.
That's the problem with me, is that people use certain words around me.
Yeah,
I have to ask them, what's that again? What's that? Yeah, people, they don't like it sometimes, but I enjoy it.
Well, look, Kent, you know that preacher David Jeremiah, right? I think he's actually in California, isn't he?
I think I know of him.
TV
I think
guy?
he's San Diego. I think he's in San Diego somewhere.
Okay, so I'm watching the service yesterday, and he was talking about the end times, about earthquakes and things like that. And then out of nowhere, he puts on the screen, like, picture a planet separated from left to right, and the gobstopper marble type thing with the molten iron core right in the middle. And he outright said, you see, God has made the planet with a molten iron core. I mean, right there, I just wanted to listen to a sermon.
Well, this is what,
right there.
well, this is why scientism has penetrated the pulpit. That's my main mission, is to educate Christians and pastors and people of leadership that it's pseudoscience that they're giving glory to God to, and not real science. And if you're a Christian, you believe the Bible. And if the Bible doesn't describe a heliocentric Earth or the creation of one, why do you side with pseudoscience? Now, once they see that it's pseudoscience, I'm hoping they do the right thing.
Right, that's what I want to ask you. How does he come off saying that when it doesn't say it in the Bible?
Because
like, he outright said God made the planet with a molten iron core with tectonic plates.
It's real simple. They have accepted pseudoscience as real science because, as Nathan explains, once you establish the scientific method, okay, for cause and effect, and then take that and use it as a cloak for everything else, when those other things have not gone through a method, they're able to get away with it. So in every university, as you walk into the science halls, there's an archway and it's some kind of Latin or something about science. I mean, and then you got the news, you got NASA, you got all this cultural stuff pushing you, showing pictures. And so then you just say, okay, well, they must have proven it. And guess what? I believe God made everything. So then God must have made that. But they don't check into it. That's the point.
Right, so we'll ask the question, any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the center of a presupposed spherical Earth?
Yes, David Jeremiah, a very well-known preacher in San Diego, California, declared it right on TV yesterday.
Right, declared it? Any evidence?
That wouldn't be evidence.
Well, if you assert P waves and S waves, you'd need a flat baseline in order to measure the return signal from
That's
that
right.
angle.
That's right. Their
Right,
claim of
Jonathan?
a spherical proof in P waves and S waves actually needs a flat Earth. Isn't that ace? Any scientific evidence of gravity?
No,
Which
it's not
one?
possible to have scientific evidence for something that is non-existent. The thing would have to exist in the first place.
Right. Any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics?
No, they can't. They can't manipulate their IVs.
Any evidence of axial rotation, although we did cover it a little bit earlier? Of the Earth-based variety, of course.
Hold on. Axial rotation. We're moving? Is that what you're telling
No.
me?
That's the story.
No, I can take a helium balloon and release half of the helium and put in air, and it'll float in the center of my room, and it'll stay there and won't be moving. The Earth is moving.
How did you know
That
you
was
didn't
it.
buy an anti-gravity balloon? There you go.
Right.
You got me there.
With that, I'm going to say if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering Streams, then stay tuned as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. A huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you who smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, and all that good stuff. Once again, stay tuned if you're watching on an after show. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!
How when you're talking to people and how you deal with them, and the conversation goes when the subject of it not being a globe comes up. Well, one of the questions you get asked is, how do you explain gravity then? And for me, that's a disastrous question, because I have to go through the whole explanation of what gravity is, and I have to basically dumb it down because I have to pre-assume the person doesn't know anything about the history of gravity. And the problem is that you have to say to them at the start, gravity doesn't exist. So how could you replace something that is non-existent in the first place? And then I'll go into what you're calling gravity is just an effect that you see. And the explanation for that effect has been hijacked, blah, blah, blah. But there's like, well, if I may. So there's only, there's only a few people who, challenge you just a bit more further because they've been to college and they probably remember some stuff. But the normal person, I don't think you have to do all that. Like, I would approach it like, oh, well, how do you, what about gravity then? And I say, what about it? And he's like, well, things fall. I'm like, yeah.
I'm going to stop you right there. I was going to address this when Brian said it earlier.
Things fall.
It was just address that. So the assertion that Brian said, that's just a description of something that happens. Is it? I would say no. It's not. It's half a description. Some things go down, some things go up, some things remain neutral. That would be the observed phenomena.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. That's what I was gonna say, because Flat Earth Boxer, Young Moses, whose channel got taken down, he asked this physics professor, this cosmologist, who had done famous experiments on gravity. He asked him, he said, well, do you have any proof of gravity separate from density and buoyancy, or the effects of density and buoyancy? And that basically describes it in a nutshell. But even I don't know if I would say that. I'd probably go with, yeah, things fall, things rise, things float. Yeah, but that's density, and it depends on how light. I'm like, yeah. So that's our reality. So what about gravity? Well, they still probably want to insist that things go down. And they're like, yeah, okay. So what's that got to do with gravity? Explain it a little more. So things going down, that they're going to have to somehow somehow get to the point where things falling down is things are being pulled to the center of the sphere. And all I have to do is say, well, how do you know that? You already have an experience of things falling down here, but this other thing that you've been told is the reason for that, you don't have evidence of. So why do you believe it?
It's that childhood story, man. People, literally, there are people that are walking around thinking because gravity exists, they are not flying around right now. They have it floated off the planet. I've been told that directly to my face. Like, gravity exists, and that's why I'm not flying in outer space right now. And I was just like, wow.
That's right.
Okay. Whatever that is. But
that's cool because you're not weightless, so that's all good. You're right. You're absolutely right. What's that got to do with the other thing?
The word that they were told describes why we're not flying around. It's got nothing to do with it. And then if you ask them if there's any proof for it, well, the proof is I'm walking around. All right, that's cool. But then when I let go of this helium balloon, what's happening? Oh, it's too light. Oh, so gravity apparently doesn't care if something. It cares whether something is light or not. That doesn't sound very conforming to what you just said, because according to you, there are bodies of water maintaining the outside of a ball. But above that, helium balloon, butterflies, everything just flies around, gas all over the place. That's cool though, right? They just look at me like, oh God.
It's electrostatic. It's electrostatic.
Shut up.
Go on, whoever from Gilded was trying to get a word in. Go ahead.
Yeah, everybody in Gilded is hearing you guys clipping out ever since Nathan came back from the live show.
Yeah, it's just seemed to be clipping my end as well. So
yeah, Righteous just sounded very clipped just now.
Well,
I could reload this.
well, I guess as long as it's getting recorded, right?
No, it's not. I can hear it clipping, which means it's going on the recording that way. I just assumed it was just Eli. I'll disconnect from Gilded and rejoin.
Wait a second. Just blame Eli for everything? I don't like that. Eli, you should be offended with that. His mic don't clip.
No, it was Eli just clipping his mic. I was looking around. I was looking at my levels going, is this me clipping? I'm like, no, minus 14. That's fine.
There's
still doing it.
Say again?
I think it's still doing it.
Just since the live show ended?
Yes, since the last show ended, since he came back.
That's weird. Okay, I don't know why. You're clipping too, so it's obviously a Gilded issue.
Alright, we'll just leave it at that for now.
I hate that. It just destroys the flow of the show. We were all having a nice conversation, and now there's going to be pauses and everyone contemplating whether there's a technical issue in Gilded or not. I'm starting to despise Gilded.
But it sounds clear when it's talking good.
You want us to continue, Nathan?
Absolutely.
Chocolate. Because instantly you knew once you saw evidence about flat Earth. What do you credit that to?
Reality.
Right, but
like it was the opposite way. I saw the evidence for it before I even knew it was a thing. Like we all did.
I know that. That's the point I'm trying to get to. So you grew up knowing our stories are very similar. So what I look at flat Earth, like if I say to someone, do you think governments around the world lie to their people? I haven't had anyone say no to that. So you start off with that kind of a thing, right? But what flat Earth does is it's like the main cipher for the whole lie. If governments and entities are hiding something, even though they seem to be at odds on political fronts and other fronts, and they go to war and all this stuff, but they have a treaty that they never break about Antarctica, and you can bring in other things if you want, but the whole point is, the minute you saw flat Earth, everything that was subconscious that you knew was reality popped into like, I knew it all my life, and they were lying to me all the time, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so this is why it's such an important topic. This is why this alone, and this alone, as far as I'm aware of, shows all the lies. Whereas if you say, do governments lie to you? Yeah, but then they might say, well, over here they don't lie. But then when you show this one, because of the grand scale of it, it's like such a big lie. It would have to mean that everything about our reality is not the way they want us to believe. They're kind of like coaxing us to go down this route that's not real. But my senses argue with it all my life. And so this flat Earth just woke me up. And so to me, if you're going to tell people, hey, I don't like, for example, Nathan, Eli, we all agree on this, we don't like anyone lying to us. All right, well, what's the best thing to show people they've really been lied to? Yeah, you can show the government lied here, and the FBI lied here, but you show this one, the whole thing takes a whole new, how can I put it, foundation in their mind. Now they're going to want to see primary sources. Now they're going to be skeptical. They're going to check everything out, which is how we want people to be. We want people to check everything out. You follow what I'm saying?
And they could go to the feast of nonsense. That happens too. It happened to me.
Well, that's something else, but that's within our own group as we've been going back and forth with science doesn't prove things. And really what they're saying is, since they lied to me using pseudoscience, I'm going to throw science out the window too, which is silly.
Well, see, that's the thing, though. You could convince someone to look into it, right? In a one-on-one conversation. But the first thing they're going to do is go to the internet, and what they're going to find is a bunch of stuff that puts out false claims or has flat earthers saying stupid stuff that's easily debunkable. Yeah. So, like, you can't really win that one.
No, you addressed it properly there. That's going to happen, so you got to warn them of that.
It doesn't even need to get to the flat Earth level, right? Because, like, I was listening, like Bart Sibrel. You guys know who Bart Sibrel is, right? Been doing the rounds a little bit lately because of a deathbed confession that he's put out very recently of somebody who just passed away, who wanted it released after he died. Right. So he's been making the rounds, doing interviews. Matter of fact, Eli, he was just on the Killer Bees podcast, which was pretty good, actually. Now,
is that the guy with the moon stuff? The moon movie?
Yeah, that's gotcha. Mr. Funny thing happened on the way to the moon, and astronauts gone wild. Right. So he declares that he's not a flat earther, but he obviously is not a moon landing believer. Matter of fact, he's a glober that doesn't believe that the moon landing happened. Now, obviously, that's because of the interactions he's got and quote unquote sources he's gotten from the government and shit like that, right? But I mean, even he was telling a story about how he was telling somebody about all of this and trying to see would the guy believe him with all the evidence that he's been provided, right? And he said, no, I would not believe that we did not go to the moon, right? And he's like, so even if Buzz Aldrin came out, right, and had a whole a speech in front of the podium, in front of everybody, crying, his eyes out, confessing that he didn't go to the moon, would you still believe him? And the guy said, I would still believe they went to the moon. Right? Because of that pride, because they can't let that shit go. Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
No, but why are
Yeah,
you surprised?
I'm
Why
not
are you
kidding you.
surprised?
If Buzz Aldrin come right out and said, listen, we didn't go, and was crying about it and, really admitting the truth, you're still going to hold on to a moon landing? Wow,
Why
that's
are you-
heavy.
Excuse me. Why are you surprised? I mean, quit viewing people through the lenses of your eyes. Everyone's coming to you from the lens of their eyes. You expect everyone to see evidence and change because that's what you would do.
No, when the people that came right, the people that
That's what I'm
supposedly
saying.
went there saying, come on, that's out there.
No, you're expecting evidence of that high nature that Buzz Aldrin himself admits it was all a gag and they still don't change. You're surprised. I'm not surprised at that.
So
That's
what are
the
they
way
gonna
it
say? He
is.
was MK Ultra?
No, stop trying to convert people. My gosh.
I'm
The
not.
whole
I
point of
find it
that
hard to
was
believe.
the whole point of that was just to say that you could put you could literally put somebody in a car and they won't believe they're in a car. Like there are certain people that are that just far gone. Right?
So,
that's my point, really.
You are sounding just like Romans chapter 1. Romans chapter 1, the Bible talks about creation is proclaiming God and that it couldn't be here without a creator, sentient being who made it, and they still deny it. It's the same thing. The evidence is here, life. And then you go deeper with DNA and code and blueprint to life and the complexity issues. But they will say, no, nothing produced everything.
you got a point there, Tim. They gotta say that.
So when someone says to me, nothing produced everything, I said, okay, have a nice day.
Excuse me, no. I'm
While
just
he's
a
sitting in the car,
complicated
right?
chemical reaction. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm not saying that you try to convert everybody. It's that when you talk the truth, which is what we should do, you're either planting a seed, you're either watering a seed that someone else planted, same truth or similar truth, or you're recognizing this person isn't interested in the truth. And then you just say, okay, have a good day. I'm not going to waste my energy on someone who doesn't want to talk.
Just on the subject of Bart Sabrell always struck me as somebody who works for the inside, where he will assassinate the moon landing, but yet he'll keep heliocentrism alive. It's like Bart, the supposed photo that showed us the first time ever it being a globe was from the Apollo missions. So, you know what I mean? The blue marble is from the Apollo missions. So you telling me,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Come on now, Bart. You're telling me you're still a globe believer. I don't believe that he's a globe believer. I don't believe that he's honest.
No, Brian, you know what it is? He's made a conscious decision. This is just one possibility. It could be others. But I think if he's on the up and up, meaning a good guy, okay, because I don't know him. But if I give him that, then I'll say he's made a conscious decision that if he's going to have a YouTube channel and a life of selling books and videos or whatever he does, speaking engagements, he can't touch flat earth because that's voodoo, that's off subject. That will just alienate him. But he will destroy the very thing that proves that the first picture of a globe isn't a picture.
Sounds like Ken Holbein.
And that's cool. Maybe he doesn't have to, right? Maybe that's what his mission is. And his mission is to destroy the moon landing for everybody. Forget about the shape of the Earth or the nature of the Earth, right? His thing is the moon landing. And maybe that's his mission. And I don't knock him for that because I appreciate it. Because 20 years ago, which is when his movies and documentaries came out, was the first time I was just like, wow, there is something weird going on here. And I appreciate that because that's probably led me to where I am now.
Well, what does he say about the calculation of the fuel that it took from Neil deGrasse Tyson, right?
Right.
Come on, that's proof, bro.
He knows they were faking it, and he was the one that got Buzz Aldrin and all these astronauts. So Buzz Aldrin punched him in the mouth. All the other astronauts just kind of shitted on him because, you know, he did something very simple. Just put your hand on the Bible. Swear you went to the moon. Why wouldn't you? Now, he did say that none of the astronauts that actually were of any type of faith put their hand on the Bible. The only two that did were atheists, which is kind of funny because obviously they don't care. But that's what he said.
But what position of authority is it? Like, if somebody like come up to you, like, and just some random dude with a camera shining it in your face, and said, "I want you to put your hand on this Bible and swear to me that you exist." Like, is that something you would take serious?
Yeah, but that's a different context. They didn't put me in front of the world, showing the world that I exist, right? But they've put these people up as heroes, showing that they've accomplished the greatest achievement in humankind, right? So it's a little bit different.
But
to me personally,
people, right? But to other people, like the average person, when they see someone acting that way, that's easily how they can interpret it. Like, why would you, even approach it that way?
Yeah, and I understand that. Like, I've had people that I've showed that movie to tell me the same thing. I don't like his tactics. I don't like the way he's doing. I'm like, well, that's what journalists do. That's what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to go up to people and ask questions. These are people that are supposedly in authority. These are supposed to be heroes, right? So why shouldn't somebody who's claiming to be a journalist run up on them and ask them questions? I don't see any problem with that.
That's not what journalists do. Journalists usually, decent ones, usually send copies of the questions or context of the conversation they're wanting to have. It's mutual agreement.
Yeah, but look at the context that we're in right now. We're talking about a military / industry of blatant lies, right? So I doubt that they're just gonna say that again.
You mean
but Bart Sabrell just doesn't believe? Yeah, Bart Sabrell doesn't believe it's all a lie. He just believes that the moon landing is.
Well, according to him, and I'm just taking what he says with a grain of salt, right? I can only go by what he says, what he's put out already, right? So he says that he was actually given money. He was funded to make those movies by somebody in NASA because that person in NASA or the head or whoever it was that funded him knew it was all bullshit, but couldn't come out and say it was. So he secretly funded him the money to make those movies.
Or maybe they need to debunk the old moon landings before they can do the new moon landings because their stories have gotten so convoluted. And maybe Bart Sabrell's a useful idiot for that.
Yeah, that's cool. I'm all right with him being a useful idiot. The useful idiot got all the astronauts saying dumb shit and acting like a bunch of scared children. And
they can declassify it because then they would have to open up that can of worms telling the American people that they weren't the first ones to go to the moon, that the Nazis secretly went to the moon in the 40s and built a space station there in the dark side, right? And they can't declassify that, so they can never come out for it.
Yeah, but that means that all the stuff you've seen on TV, right, that's all fake. But there's a real program out there, and Joe Rogan's already touched on this.
Right, it's just a cover story, right? The fake moon landings, they just had to cover it somehow and make it all continue. But there was a giant thing that was actually secretly happening, and they've kept it secret for half a century.
Yeah, the giant thing that was secretly happening was them faking the freaking moon landings. That's the giant thing.
But see, the whole time you're arguing about that, you're not even acknowledging that space, space as they describe it doesn't exist. Like it can exist that way, you know?
Of
So it's
course.
helpful for them just in confusion to hide that.
But how do you explain the glass tubes that were spotted on the moon then? As large as like a building.
No.
Calm down, Richard Hoagland. Calm down.
Yeah, calm down, Hoagland.
Hey, this is how it works, right? Oh,
Yeah.
fakes. Then what were those photos of those glass tubes on the moon that were giant megastructures then? Stupid flat earther.
Oh yeah, yeah. But say that work. See, it kind of plays into their whole narrative that they've been fed.
I could explain those glass tubes. Those glass tubes were very expensive cigars that are sold in glass tubes. And when they were off camera, the astronauts, actors were smoking them and they forgot to clean up the set.
Well, no.
That's actually kind of funny.
That is really funny, actually.
Bro actually did say when the guys, because he said two things, and I know, again, going back to Bart's bro, whatever. But he said two things that I found very curious. It was really conspiratory. But it kind of just made me like, what? Really? If that's true, then that's a little crazy.
Well, with the glass tubes, I think that they were basically just getting wild with it, right? So they were just like doing the fake moon footage with like a miniature scale thing. And they were just screwing around, testing like, oh, why don't we throw this in there? Let's see what that looks like. Does it look like science fiction? They just made a couple of photographs. Those photographs were probably never meant for official publishing, but then somebody did that anyway. I think that's how a lot of this weird shit comes out. Just them improvising, and then it's secretly leaking, and then they have to make a story around it all of a sudden.
Well, who cares? Because nobody with P1000 has ever photographed giant glass tubes on the moon. Ever since the P900 came out, the P1000 and the Panasonic FZ82, any of these super zoom cameras, ever since they came out, all these kind of supposed photographs of bases on the moon and all the rest of it, you never hear them. They're gone. No one ever sees them things anymore.
It was on the backside of the moon.
Now we can actually look at the thing.
It's on the backside of the moon. Of course, you're not going to see the base from Earth, even with the P900. The base is on the backside. But these glass tubes, I think you need just a special telescope that's right outside of the atmosphere. So you can just have a pure, unadulterated look at the moon without weird blur-ups and like this
outside of the
weird ripple effect and all that, right?
Backside of the what?
The backside of the moon. The dark side, the other side, the one we never get to see. That's where the bases are. So, of course, you can't see that from Earth.
Oh, you're talking within the narrative, aren't you, Owen? Clearly.
I have been for like 10 minutes now.
Okay, fine.
He stepped away to get coffee, Arwen.
You guys just caught that Arwen was in character?
No, I knew he was in character. Well, what I found funny was recently something that I talked about on this show several times, and kind of in a way regret saying it live, because they're after coming out with they're trying to come up with some excuse now, is how the moon landings, right, that they claim happen, they show a force of gravity. But I think it was 54 years prior or 45 years prior to that, Einstein threw that out the window and everyone agreed with him. And suddenly, a force of gravity. They don't show any general relativity. There's nothing like that. They just show a force of gravity as they try and make it look like the astronauts are under only 1/6 gravity, right? It's rubbish.
Except they can't jump high enough, though.
Yeah,
but
they
slow it down and all that nonsense.
I'm not finished. Point being is that was thrown out the window in 1915 by Albert Einstein. Everyone agreed. And at the top level of all pseudoscience, they all agree general relativity. No more force of gravity doesn't happen. Gravity is not a force. Einstein explain with the equivalence principle is explaining how the Earth comes up. Well, he's not really explaining, but how the Earth comes up to meet the object and not the object going down to meet the Earth. All that is taken. There's no weight involved. There's none of that in his general relativity. There's no mass attracting mass. His 10 field equations, you can't account for more than one mass, whatever mass is. But the point being is that now they're trying to come up with something, and I reckon it's directly due to this show, come up with something, some kind of an excuse as to how they used the other old gravity for the moon landings. How could you use the old gravity when you threw that out the window? How could you be doing that?
Well, you don't have to work on the really is level on the moon landings, right?
You just throw it over your shoulder and keep it moving.
Yeah.
Well, they had to try something, and like Einsteinian gravity doesn't actually do anything in order to apply it to a pseudo reality that you're trying to emulate. So how would you do that? Newtonian is the only thing that's sort of tangible, even though it doesn't work. But you know,
that's the point. They couldn't show general relativity, because all they would show would just be people walking around as if they're normal. They wouldn't be able to show it. There's nothing to show. It's all mathematical nonsense. At least with Cavendish era force of gravity nonsense, at least with that, you can show a mass attracting mass effect and a change in weight, all this rubbish. But you can't do that with general relativity. So that's why they still, I believe it's purely why they still teach gravity as a force in schools. It's purely down to the fact that they have to, because it's on the moon landings. They're showing it in the moon landing, supposedly.
I got a question for you, Brian, a math question, so that should fit. But you know how they say on Earth there is 1g, right? I think that's still Newtonian based. But if that is only Newtonian and not with pseudo-Riemannian force-based Einstein gravity, then how would they even approach what the supposed, well, gravity, Newtonian gravity, the displacement, what we know as relative density, what the strength of this would be, even in general? Like, does it even ever address anything about that? Like, oh, this is what the time-space gravity is causing us to stick to the ball. Is that even a statement?
No, because general relativity makes 1g impossible. It can't be 1g. Because the G doesn't, the 1G is an attractive, it's connected to an attractive force. There is no 1G in Einstein's relativity. There is no weight accounted for. There's no more than one mass accounted for. It's 10 field equations. You can't change even one bit of any of those field equations without it changing a load of other things in the other ones. I've looked into it. I've listened to lectures about it and stuff.
Wow. So it is completely disconnected and unpractical then. Like, it's just math. It doesn't help you model anything, pretty much.
The one mass is Earth, though.
Yeah, but
that's about the nature of the calculation, right?
The point is there's no attractive. Sorry, well, I kind of put on you now in fairness. There's no attractive force, John. There's no mass attracting mass in Einstein's relativity. His equivalence principle speaks about how the Earth is always coming up to meet the object. It's just a re-explaining of the effect that he doesn't even state. It's a re-explaining of an effect that he doesn't even properly explain.
And with that, I'm going to say another huge, massive, enormous thank you to both Gilded and G+ panels for making today's after show possible. And of course, a massive thank you to all of you in either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering streams, hopefully smashing the super chat, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, joining as a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member where you could have watched this video a lot earlier, and all that good stuff. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!